Rev up your engines! Here you go, the car companies again trying to prove who's bigger than the other guy. Dodge is working on a secret Tesla-killing electric muscle car. The Dodge Hellcat engines and everything had the record for a quarter mile, which is 9.65 seconds, but the Model S Plaid Tesla did it in 9.23 seconds, and of course now they're talking about making an electric Hellcat that could beat them. You know what I say? Yours is bigger. Who cares? You're not going to be able to drive your car in a quarter mile that fast very often on the street. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to cause problems. They only sell a limited amount of these things anyways. But of course they're all chasing each other's tails here to see who can make the fastest car. How about the ones that last the longest and are built the best? Maybe let's get back to what cars are really for. Neither the Teslas or the Dodges are known for long-term reliability, quality of manufacture. The world's more than just how fast can you go a quarter mile, and it's fine for the guys that race them around, but even there, you have to look at the facts today. Racing in the United States is a dying thing. There's only a certain amount of people that even do that anymore. It's not as popular as it once was. Maybe these guys need to get into the 21st century, make dependable transportation devices that people don't want to pay too much money for. That'll get it from here to there and won't break down when they're a few years old. But who knows with the Dodge, because now, you know, it's Stellantis, and they also own Maserati. They're going to make some electric supercar. They could share the technology. Who knows? These are all up in the air, expensive cars. Even a Model S Plaid. What average person is going to buy a car like that? $100-something thousand. These guys in the companies, they're still living in an ivory tower. They need to come back down to earth, where the rest of us live. All right, Volvo's recalling their 2019-2020 vehicle from 2019 to 2020. Almost all of them, all the models practically, are involved in this. And what's the problem? Well, the fuse might blow. When you start it, step on the brake or whatever, a fuse might blow, and then the car won't run anymore because it's a fuse that helps run the fuel pump. Here's Volvo's fix. What people are telling us never to do with cars. They're replacing the 15 amp fuse with a higher amperage fuse so it won't blow. Well, now, I always thought the engineers knew what they were doing when they designed these things. Why did they put a 15 amp fuse in? Because that's supposed to be the right amperage. You're always told never put a higher amp fuse in because then you might have problems, right? Like a fire or something. Well, that's their solution. Put a higher amperage fuse in. What happened to all this high-tech engineering involved? They're like, oh, well, those ones are too low. Let's put a higher amp fuse in. Oh, are they admitting their engineers messed up in the first place? Or are they just saying, oh, what the heck, it won't blow then if later down the line something starts on fire? Oh, who cares? I mean, when I was a kid, we used to have screw-in fuses, right? And in the real crappy houses, they kept blowing the fuses, so people would put like aluminum foil and tighten it in to make it not blow. It's certainly not the safest or most intelligent thing to do. And here's Volvo now saying, we'll put a higher amp fuse in. That just kind of makes me cringe at the rest of the stuff these clowns are doing. If their solution is to put a higher amperage fuse in for the one that might blow. I mean, they're there for a reason. I'm assuming the engineers knew what they were doing when they were designing it. They said, oh, we'll put a bigger fuse in now. That kind of contravenes what they were doing in the first place to use it as a safety measure. So you don't have any fires or anything. Yeah, everybody's just looking for a cheap fix these days. Sue Maggie says, Scotty, I got an 03 Tahoe. My mechanic's had it for 2 weeks for a bad AC condenser and a problem with the electric fan. What do you think the hold could be? The hold is the guy doesn't know what he's doing or he doesn't care about fixing your car. It's not a complex job. Take me maybe 2-3 hours to do the job, and the electric fan is even faster to switch on. And don't let him give you some BS, but he can't get parts. I can get parts for that in 5 minutes. Call down the street to any of the discount auto parts stores. They either have them in stock here or they ship them in the afternoon from Nashville. It's a bunch of BS if he says he can't, but he just doesn't care about your business. I would say pick it up, go someplace else. The guy obviously doesn't care about your business. It doesn't take that long. I mean, you give me one of those things in the morning and it's done in the afternoon. Jay Press says, Scotty, what do you think of the first generation Acura MDX 01 to 06? Okay, they're well-built cars. They're fancy Hondas, right? Great engines and stuff. But, and this is a gigantic but, I would not buy one of those old ones that's all-wheel drive, because I had customers with those with all-wheel drive. And when they broke and they had to spend $5,000 to $7,000 fixing the automatic transmissions with all-wheel drive, they wish they would have bought a two-wheel drive one instead of an all-wheel drive one. But those years, yes, you don't want to buy one that's all-wheel drive. Stay away from that. John A. says, huge fan. I just bought an 05 Corvette, 60,000 miles, pristine condition for 17 grand. What do you think? LS2 and T56 manual. You know, People like those cars. They'll collect them. 60,000 miles on a 17-year-old car. That's low mileage. And those engines can run forever. They're fun cars to drive around. And for what you paid, you really don't have any worries. Just insure it for at least what you paid. So if it gets wrecked or stolen or something, you get your money back. And you can probably drive it for quite some time and sell it and make a little bit of money, or at least break even. People like them and they're fun toys. And with that mileage, there's no way anything's worn out unless somebody just ragged the heck out of it when they owned it. But with that low mileage, odds are that they babied it. A lot of guys get those things and baby them. I'm assuming you probably bought it from an older guy, because young guys drive the heck out of them and they put a lot more mileage than that on. Cassie said, how good is a Skoda Octavia 1.9 turbo diesel 2005? Well, it could be an excellent vehicle if you live in Europe, where they have parts and guys that know how to work on it. You import one to the United States, you'd be nuts trying to find parts for a Skoda. I know a lot of Volkswagen parts are interchangeable, but it's such a pain in the butt trying to figure out what goes where when it's a different brand. But in Europe, I know guys in England that swear by them. They like them. As long as you're in an area where there's parts and mechanics that know how to fix them, it's perfectly fine. But don't buy one in the United States. Mining Pro says, Scotty, if your serpentine belt goes out while driving, will anything get damaged? This recently happened to me. Well, it depends what you do. Most cars, the serpentine belt drives the water pump. If you drive it without the serpentine belt, the engine will overheat. Well, let's say you're driving around, you hear the belt snap, and then you stop it, fine. It didn't hurt anything. But if you keep driving it and the engine overheats, yeah, you're going to do all kinds of damage. The only other thing is the big serpentine belts go all over the place. Check all your wiring, because if it does snap and fly off, it can cut wires. It can ruin the crank sensor if it gets rammed in on the crank and then eat up the oil seal on the front. That's why I tell people, every once in a while, look at your serpentine belt. Simple. Look for cracks. If it's squealing, replace it. If it's more than 7 or 8 years old, just replace the stupid thing. And don't go buy the cheapest one at a discount auto parts store unless you're selling the car. Buy the most expensive one they have. They last the longest, and you won't have to think about it for years. Preventive maintenance. Eddie Carter says, Scotty, my AC only blows cold when we drive. What could be the issue? All right, first thing you want to check, with the AC turned on, make sure the cooling fans are coming on. If they're not coming on, it's not going to work, because it needs the cooling fans. Once you start driving, the wind's blowing, highway 60 miles an hour, you don't need cooling fans. The wind's already blowing 60 miles an hour. Check that. Also, have the refrigerant level checked. If you're low on refrigerant, a lot of times it won't go. The last thing you hope is not that. If your compressor's getting weak, a lot of times it's only going to blow cold when it's spinning really fast when the engine's going faster. And in that case, you got to buy a minimum of a new compressor, and that's a very expensive job. So pray it's either the fans or you're low on refrigerant. That's the most common thing. Heaven Sent Me says, what's a good first sports car under 12 grand with less than 100,000 miles? Mazda Miatas are fun to drive around it. If you don't mind a Mazda Miata, there's a billion, you can find a lot of them there in that price range, right? Now, if you find a properly maintained Mustang, that could be fun. But it's a lot easier to get a used Mazda than it is getting a Mustang, because Mustangs, a lot of guys drive them hard and they're all worn out. Now, if you are looking at Mustangs and you don't care about insane power, look at used Mustangs with the V6, not the V8, but the V6. Don't even think about buying a 4-cylinder EcoBoost Mustang. Those engines have problems with age. You wouldn't want to touch that. You don't mind a little bit slower and you want to get the V6 Mustang, and it's been taken care of. That could be a pretty good deal if you want a little bit faster car than a Mazda Miata. But you get a lot better gas mileage in a Miata. Stephen Green said, what's the purpose of a carbon filter on my 2015 Ford Fusion? Now, if you're talking about the Evap canister, that's full of carbon. That is to get rid of the hydrocarbons in the fuel fumes from your gas tank. When I was a kid, it would just vent to the atmosphere and pollute. So now it goes through this carbon filter, which filters out the hydrocarbons, sends them back to get reburnt in the engine, and then pure air comes out. If you're talking about a carbon cabin air filter inside the car, that filters the air when you run your air conditioning and heat. And the carbon ones, of course, actually filter smells and things out. A normal cabin air filter is just like an air filter for your engine. It filters out dirt, but it doesn't filter out smells. A carbon filter will also filter out the smells. Moman3833 says, how can I find a freon leak in my car? Well, if it's an easy leak, get dishwashing soap, squirt it on, it'll bubble out, right? Easy to see. If it's not, you can inject some UV leak dye. You go to like the AutoZone, they sell all that stuff, and you get a kit for like $35. And you wear yellow sunglasses and use an UV light and then see where the dye comes out. It glows, right? Those are the two best ways of finding them. Now, if it's inside the dash, forget all that. You need a sniffer machine then. And the good ones cost $300 to $500. I doubt if you're going to buy a sniffer, pay a mechanic to look for it then. I got sniffer machines, but they cost an awful lot of money. Generally, as long as it's not inside the dash, you can find it with either the dye or just soap bubbles. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.